On today's show, the Hawks get a home win over the Houston Rockets on this Saturday evening. Kobe Buffkin makes his rotation debut. Dejounte Murray has a big game for Atlanta and much more. We'll get into all of what transpired in this game and the big picture as well, and we'll do it right now.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 1651 of the Locked On Hawks podcast. I am your host, Brad Rowland, coming to you on a Saturday evening, deep into the night here into Sunday morning. And today's show is brought to you by the folks at LinkedIn Jobs, and they help you to find qualified candidates that you want to talk to and help you to actually do it faster and do it for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. Terms and conditions apply. Also, I should encourage you on the podcast, as I always do, to make us your first listen each and every day on this show. Check us out anywhere you get your podcasts, places like Apple and Spotify, as well as YouTube on the video side. And today's podcast will focus heavily on what became a very nice win for the Hawks, 122-113 at home against the Rockets on this Saturday evening. 2 wins in a row for Atlanta on back-to-back days. Their 6th win in the last 8 games. They're playing better basketball right now, sort of unequivocally at this point in time. It was kind of a salty game. Lots of emotions running high on the floor in this one. Trash talking and reactions and extracurriculars, etc. The Hawks actually had a terrible start in this game offensively. They were down by as many as 12 points in the first half. They had an awesome second quarter to kind of take control of the game. They were kind of hanging around in the positive realm after that. And then the fourth quarter, they kind of had to hang on for dear life, honestly. Similarly to yesterday's game on Friday, where they were pretty much in control of the game. Never lost control, but certainly were more on the edge of it down the stretch. But in the end, a very nice win for Atlanta. And we'll get into all of how this game sort of unfolded starting now. And honestly, it was both teams, by the way, were on a back-to-back in this game. With travel, both teams had heavy legs very clearly, and also very, very short-handed because there were tons and tons of injuries and illnesses to go along in this game. So on the positive side, Dejounte Murray, while his designation changed on the injury report from his low back tightness to a right lower back spasm, he was able to play in this game and looked good and was certainly playing well. Was the key to the Hawks winning this contest. So that was one of the positive side. But beyond that, the Hawks had only 9 players active and available for this game, including Kobe Buffkin, who was called up this morning and also managed to basically play his first rotation minutes of the season for Atlanta. But that included, those 9 guys included Kobe. They had 6 guys out for injuries or illnesses, 2 guys still in the G League, and one of those guys, by the way, Seth Lundy, is hurt right now, and then Trent Forrest is unavailable to play. So they were very, very short-handed in this game. DeAndre Hunter missed the game, just basically doing management for his knee. Snyder did say that pre-game, that, they're trying to kind of just be prudent with regard to Hunter. So not a huge surprise that he didn't play the back-to-back. Obviously, you want to be careful with him going into the All-Star break, etc., so no huge surprise there. 3 guys had illnesses. Bruno Fernando, Patty Mills, and Wes Matthews all out with illness. And then, plus, of course, Mo Gay and Clay Capella are still out. Lundy actually turned his ankle at some point in the last couple of days and did not play for College Park tonight. And then, as I mentioned before, Trent Forrest is still on a 2-way right now with the Hawks, but he is literally not eligible to play because he's already reached his 50-game limit with the Hawks. So, long story short, 9 guys available for the Hawks in this game. The Rockets were also shorthanded in a big way to the point where, spoiler alert, the Hawks were actually favored in this game by 7 points. That probably sounds crazy because the Hawks were down so many players in this game, but by the time this game actually transpired, they were not necessarily the healthier team, but they were the team that was less affected by injuries because Houston was without Fred VanVleet and Alperen Sengun, who were basically their top 2 offensive players, plus they were without Cam Whitmore and Tari Eason. So very, very odd in the way this game kind of unfolded with all sides being shortened, and it was kind of an ugly game, I have to be honest with you. And honestly, not the best offensive performance from the Hawks in this game, and because of that, I'm going to go the defense first in this contest, as I rarely do in a win, but here we are. A 108 defensive rating for the Hawks in this game, one of the top 5 defensive marks of the season on a per-possession basis for Atlanta. That's obviously a very clear positive. I do have to say, for context purposes, the Rockets are pretty bad on offense. They're below average, they're bottom 10 in the league in offensive rating, even at full strength, and they were, again, without Sengun and VanVleet, who, in my mind, are their 2 best offensive players. So, not a huge surprise that Houston was not able to play at a high level offensively, but given how the Hawks have struggled defensively in this season, nothing was assured, and they did a good job to hold them to a 108 defensive rating in this game. Houston did not shoot the ball very well. They were subpar from the field at 44% and from three at 30%. Only had 19 free throw attempts allowed in this game for the Hawks, which is actually a very good number. 21 assists allowed and 17 turnovers is an excellent ratio. Anything short of 2-to-1 is really good. That was almost 1-to-1. That's awesome. It was the second game in a row and the second night in a row that the Hawks got smoked on the defensive glass. Obviously, that's something to keep in mind for the future. It's worth noting that they were forced to play incredibly small in this game. So it wasn't like that was a huge surprise. They lost the rebounding battle because not only without Capella, who of course is a great rebounder, but the Hawks were without Fernando, so they had to play backup center was Jalen Johnson in this game, and they basically had 2 forwards and 1 center available. So you're going to lose the rebounding battle. That makes a lot of sense. I was actually surprised they didn't play more zone, or really any zone at all, but they did enough defensively to take advantage of Houston's vulnerabilities and kind of hold the line, even though they were, again, playing incredibly small in this game. Offensively, it was not their best effort by any means. They ended up with a 116 offensive rating, which is certainly fine for this Hawks team. It's below their average. They were very good in the middle of the game. Obviously, there's more to life than that, but the Hawks had 76 points in the 2 middle quarters combined. And in the first quarter and the fourth quarter combined, it was 46 points. So obviously a big difference there. And it was kind of, night and day with how this game unfolded, but in the end it was enough. They were below average shooting wise from the field, 45%, and from 3 at 34%. But a big swing in this game was the free throw line. They actually got to the line 37 times. That is almost double what Houston was able to do in this game, getting downhill. And by the way, Dejounte Murray set a new career high in free throw attempts with 15. Now, that's not like a crazy number for a career high, but Dejounte's not always been a high free throw guy, but he was really able to get there effectively. He was driving importantly in this game, not only to have his own finishing, get to the line, set up teammates, etc. He was very good in this one, and that was, again, something to circle, a career high for Murray, a guy who's been an all-star in this league, etc. To have that be a notable mark there, certainly impressive. 25 assists is just fine, but 11 turnovers, that's a very good, important thing in the ball security battle. They did very little on the offensive glass in this game, unsurprisingly. Same reasons as the defensive glass. They were so small in this one, but they had 4 guys that scored at least 18 points on offense in this game, and they were the guys that you would probably expect. It was Trey, it was Murray, it was Johnson, and it was Bay. And not a ton of support, honestly, beyond that offensively, but there was sort of enough in this game. And, we'll kind of leave it there for now, but, Murray was good on offense for sure. Johnson was pretty good. Bay was pretty good. And, overmatched Houston team, but a lot of just strange looking rotations, as we'll talk about more in depth later on. And the bench battle certainly kind of went to Houston. Old friend Aaron Holiday, by the way, had 18 points for Houston off the bench in this game. It actually looked really good. But, we're off the rails now, but I will just say this again. A very solid win. Were the Hawks supposed to win this game? Absolutely they were. They were favored by 7 points. That's not a huge, that's kind of a telling thing. I know that not everybody loves the point spread stuff, but it's a good indication of what the projections are from people that are very smart about this stuff. And the Hawks were the better team for certainly most of 3 quarters. And that was enough to overcome a really woeful start and a kind of woeful finish in some ways. It got very close down the stretch. But in the end, a taking care of business win for this Hawks team. They're now 13-14 at home, which is not good, but it has improved in recent days. And by the way, for the sickos out there, the Hawks are now 6-1 in the last 7 games against the spread. They are still all-time terrible against the spread this year. They've been underachieving this season, but they've been better, not only just the way they're playing, but also just the way they're competing against expectations coming into the year and coming into the respective games. So the Hawks are playing better basketball. I think we all agree on that at this point in time. They were banged up here and they overcame that, and that's sort of a good positive sign moving forward. All right, we'll touch on all of what sort of unfolded in this game when it comes to the game flow, how Buffkin looked, etc., and then we'll get into the player stuff at the end of the podcast. But first, a word from our sponsors on today's show. Today's show is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the roles that you have available, and that's why you should check out LinkedIn Jobs. They have the tools that you're looking for to help find the right professionals for your team. They do it faster and they do it for free. I've been on the hunt multiple times to hire people for my day job, and it's always been a great stop for me along the way at LinkedIn Jobs. It's been huge, making the entire process easier and much more efficient. It saves time and effort all along the way, and they know that small businesses are often wearing a ton of different hats, and they might not have the time or resources to hire in the best possible fashion. LinkedIn is not just another job board. They have a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, and they also makes the best possible place for you to find someone to hire. It gives you access to professionals that you can't find anywhere else, and they do it also by making the process easy and intuitive at LinkedIn Jobs. Hiring is easy when you have that many qualified candidates. It's so easy that 86% of businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. LinkedIn also finds the ways to make your process entirely easier, and 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. Post your job for free by going to linkedin.com/lockedonnba. That is linkedin.com/lockedonnba. Terms and conditions apply. All right, to the game flow now. I'm actually let this game out of the gate 8-3, and it kind of felt normal at the outset because the starters were pretty much normally in place. Obviously, Capella's out right now, as is Hunter, but you have a lineup with Trey and Dejounte and Saddiq Bey and Jalen Johnson and Okongwu. It's like a pretty normal lineup, but the rest of the lineups were not really very normal. Jalen had a couple of huge dunks at the outset that we should mention. Dejounte was passing the ball at a high level early on. It was an 8-man rotation in this game for Atlanta. AJ Griffin did not play. He was the 9th guy. He was the only player that did not appear in this game. That is not a huge surprise, as I covered recently on the show. Landry Fields kind of, I'm not saying he announced anything, but certainly the indication was that AJ is going to be going to College Park at some point to get back on the floor. He's not been really on the court for game style play in quite some time, so no huge surprise. I actually predicted pregame, even once Murray was in, that Kobe would play and AJ would not. So that's kind of the feel around the team right now. AJ's not particularly close to playing. But anyway, it was Kobe Buffkin's first ever rotation minutes for the Hawks. Now, he's appeared in 3 games before, but they were all in total garbage time. He came in alongside Bogey. He played alongside either Trey or Dejounte the entire game. So he's essentially functioning as the shooting guard most nights. And he played 8 minutes in both halves, 16 minutes total. And we'll talk about it more later on when I have some audio from Quinn Snyder, actually, who talked about the way that Kobe played after I asked him about that post game. But he looked, just broadly speaking, good to me. He played good defense. He was not a huge part of the offense in this game. A couple of catch and shoot opportunities, not a ton of volume as an on-ball player, but certainly didn't look out of place. And that's kind of all you want to see from a rookie guard, and a positive start for him. Jalen, by the way, was the backup center in this game out of necessity. I mean, this is the way. It's not. I won't get on the rabbit hole too much here, but one of the roster building challenges or deficiencies is the way I would probably put it right now for this Hawks team, is that even when they are at full strength, there are not a ton of size on the front line of this team. Now, obviously, when you have Capella, Okongwu, and Fernando as 3 center, that's actually a really good 3 center combination. But they only have 2 power forwards on the roster right now. The third one is Mo Gay, who's not played at all this year, really, for as far as the meaningful minutes are concerned. And Saddiq Bey is more of a combo forward. Hunter could play there a little bit as well, but they're a little bit weighted toward the guard spots on the supplemental roster in this game, in this season. So perfect storm, to be sure, all these injuries and the illness to Bruno and all that stuff. But in the end, they essentially had 1 center and 2 forwards available in this game. So when they actually put Jalen at center, they kind of had to tie him to Saddiq Bey because Bey is the only other forward they had. And to give Jalen any kind of chance up front, you want to have a little bit more bulk around him. But that also led to Okongwu having to play with essentially 4 guards a lot in this game because the 3 of them had to cover all the minutes together, and they wanted to, again, rightly tie Saddiq more to Jalen. So it was some juggling going on for the Hawks in this game, and they kind of had to, make sure Okongwu was able to cover for some other guys when they had to do that. But probably the worst stretch of the game for the Hawks was the end of the first quarter. A 19-4 run by the Rockets. The Hawks had 4 points in more than 6 minutes offensively. They were, in the quarter, 8-28 from the field. They missed 15 of their last 17 shots to end the first quarter. And honestly, they couldn't afford that. I said that at the time. Obviously, they were much better. If you kind of just put that sample size to the side and cover the other 42 minutes, they shot pretty well in the game. But when you miss 15 out of 17 shots, that's going to sink your efficiency for the full game, and it certainly did in this spot. Fortunately, they were only down 12. Against a lot of the teams, they would have been down by 20 or more. They also had some genuinely bad defensive moments. Bogey was really struggling, overhelping, etc. Anyway, the Hawks did wake up after that mercifully. And spoiler alert a little bit, the second quarter tonight was actually their best quarter by margin of victory or margin of advantage of the whole season so far. they were plus 20. They were 38. It was 38-18 in the second quarter. The first time since November of 2022, so more than a year ago, that they outscored an opponent by 20 points or more in a single quarter. So obviously they were dominant in that period. They shot it well. The Rockets did not shoot the ball well, etc. Congo had a couple of big dunks. The Hawks had a ton of dunks. Actually, at one point, their first 9 field goals, 6 of them were dunks. So they were at least attacking the rim effectively in this game. They had a run early on, actually an overall run of about, I think it was 29-11 by the middle of the quarter. There was a little bit of foul trouble for Okongwu in this game. He actually had 3 in the middle of the second quarter, ended up coming out of the game. The only way that Okongwu would have played as little, quote unquote, as 32 minutes in this game was because of foul trouble, and that's why he only played that much. And obviously, that's still a lot of minutes for a center, but given that he was the only center, I think he would have probably gone close to 40 if he could have, but foul trouble kind of kept him off the floor throughout at times. Trey threw his nightly absurd pass to Jalen Johnson. He actually missed the shot, did Jalen, so it won't like make the huge highlight rounds, but I started laughing along with Kevin Chouinard courtside. And the last possession, by the way, was hilarious. If you missed this, Bogey kind of messed up, and I don't know if he just didn't see the shot clock or whatever, but he threw a flaming bag of a pass to Trey. Fortunately, Trey managed to get the ball out of his hands in time to beat the shot clock and actually hit the rim with the shot, and that allowed Jalen to streak down the floor and get a tip dunk to end the half and go up by 8 points. So that was a funny possession. Bogey just messed up, but it worked out well for the Hawks. And again, they won the quarter by 20 to go into the halftime break up by 8 after being down by as many as 12 in that period. Then they started well after halftime, and over the course of about 14 minutes of action, it was 45-18 in favor of the Hawks. So if you want to be cynical, you could say the Hawks won that stretch of 14 minutes by 27 points, and they lost the rest of the game by a considerable margin. But hey, who cares? It all works out in the end. They took some bad shots. Trey took a few bad shots. He was not very good in this game, I didn't think, by his standards. Okongwu missed some free throws. Rockets made a couple threes. Like, it was suddenly back in sort of into being a game again. On the bright side, Murray was feeling it, which is good to see. Bufkin had a nice catch and shoot 3, but Dejounte was really kind of the focal point of the offense a lot in the second half. They kind of played the third quarter to a draw, in fact, exactly a draw. It was actually tied at one point, and then the Hawks made a late shot to go up by 3 in that third quarter, but they were up the whole way. But the fourth quarter was much more of an adventure, I should say. Houston started off the fourth quarter well, getting it down to 6. Bogey was struggling during that time. They got it back to 12 at one point in the fourth quarter, but from there, it was too many contested jump shots, I thought, for the Hawks. Couldn't get stops. The lead was all the way down to 4 at one point late in the game. Jabari Smith had 2 huge blocks, local product. Jabari Smith for the Rockets had 2 huge blocks, and then the Rockets, crucially, got back-to-back second chance buckets. So offensive rebounds and putbacks, and that led to the Hawks being up only by 4 points. Murray did stop the bleeding a little bit with 3-point play, and then a big swing in the game was Okongwu being called for his 6th foul, and he would have fouled out. Contesting a shot on Jabari Smith. A obvious challenge by Quinn in that you kind of have to do that when Okongwu was your only center. It was a big play in the game, but he did it, and he won it. That was a big play because they got a stop on that play as well. And then Saddiq Bey hits a 3 that I think was probably supposed to be the dagger in this game, but because the Hawks kind of gave it back, it wasn't necessarily the case. Trey turned the ball over twice in a row in crunch time, once on a carrying violation that he did commit. It was a bad play by him, and then a live ball turnover as well. And then again, it was down to 4 or 5. And then Dejounte made another big play, actually just making free throws. He was fouled away from the rim. And then after a stop, in a long possession where the Hawks got an offensive rebound, actually they're one of their few in this game, did Okongwu. And then Saddiq Bey had a nice tip dunk to kind of officially end it, to go up by 9 in the final minute, and that was that. But look, it was way, way, way too close for comfort down the stretch. And the Hawks certainly have to own that. Even not being at full strength, they were up solidly in this game and kind of threatened to give it away. They didn't give it away in the end, and the Hawks have been better recently at, even when they falter. It happened last night too. On Friday, they kind of had almost the same game flow where they haven't quite given it away. This year, at times early in the season, they made a couple of those collapses that end up in losses that cost you, but these last 2 games, they've avoided that, and they managed to get out of there with a victory. So we'll leave it there for now, but certainly it was not all breezy. It wasn't an A-plus performance from the Hawks in this game, but defensively, very solid. Offensively, kind of just enough. And we'll get into player stuff in a second because only 8 guys played, but we'll have plenty to talk about, especially with regard to Bufkin and Murray, etc. But first, a word from our sponsors on the show. Today's show is brought to you by Nissan. Are you ever the kind of driver that likes to push things a little bit further in your life? Do you ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner when you're driving? Our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. The 2024 Nissan Rogue is perfect for city drives and great escapes alike. It also has class-exclusive Google built-in that is always your updating assistant to call on for almost anything. Gone are the days of connecting your phone because Google Assistant, Google Maps, and Google Play Store are built right into the 12.3-inch HD touchscreen infotainment system with the Nissan Rogue. And 2024 Rogue is a perfect midsize crossover for your next adventure. And they also have an incredible lineup at Nissan that includes the 2024 Nissan Pathfinder. The Pathfinder has up to room for 8, an expansive cargo capacity, and also advanced available 4x4 capability with 284 horsepower and 6,000 pounds of towing. When adventure calls, the Pathfinder is there to answer. And you can take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, Nissan Armada, and go find your next big adventure. Shop nissanusa.com. All right, and to the player evaluations in this spot. Again, 8 guys played. No AJ, and everybody else was either injured or ineligible or sick or anything, any combination of all of those things. I do want to start with Kobe Buffkin, who got his, again, first ever rotation minutes in this spot. He played in both halves, 8 minutes in both halves, and I'm actually going to play some audio for you now. I asked Quinn Snyder post-game about Kobe. By the way, if you are someone who wants to check out pregame stuff, I often share audio on my Patreon, which is patreon.com/BT Rowland. I actually asked Quinn about Kobe pregame as well, and that's available there. But I was the one that asked Quinn about Kobe postgame, and here's what he had to say about his rookie guard.
It was the most that Kobe's played. What did you see from him on both ends of the floor?
I thought he did a terrific job. You know, he took shots when he's open, you know, which we want. There was a couple possessions, you know, most importantly, you know, it's hard to stay in front of those guys. They're quick. And, you know, he was down in the stance, moving his feet, you know, had his hands out, was eating space, you know, just fundamentally the things that, you know, you need to do to, you know, to be a solid defender in this league. And, you know, to be thrown in the situation he was in tonight, you know, he's ready. And we talked about this before the game. I think a lot of it has to do with playing in the G League. You know, he's got a rhythm, and I mentioned it before. You know, he's watching tape. You know, they're not, as I know, fortunate enough to fly in a private plane. You know, you're in Grand Rapids getting the first commercial flight out of the morning. And what that does is it allows you time, you know, with your coach. And he's done a lot of film. You know, there's a lot of things that he's doing. He's not just down there hooping. He's getting better. And he's been disciplined, and it showed tonight. And he really played well.
So there you go from Quinn firsthand. Obviously, he was happy with the way Kobe looked. I certainly would have been as well. He wasn't a huge part of the offense on the ball in this game. He took 4 shots. They were all threes, and they were all catch and shoots. Actually, no, sorry, 3 of the 4. There was one that was an off dribble, which was a pretty aggressive shot, which I was okay with. And again, he was playing off the ball mostly. He was playing with Trey Dejounte, so no huge surprises there. I do wonder what it would have been like if Dejounte didn't play, because I think they would have had to play Kobe more on the ball with Trey off the court at some point. But with Dejounte there and Trey there, Kobe was essentially functioning as a 2 guard in this game after playing a lot of point guard basically all year long. Defensively, I thought he looked good. As you kind of heard Quinn talk about there, I thought he was engaged. He had a nice couple of possessions where he was kind of cutting guys off. There was one rep against Jalen Green that was awesome defensively that I certainly made note of in the left corner. He looked the part. Obviously, you don't want to overreact, but he's got good size, good length, especially for a point guard, but certainly enough to play some 2 as well. He's a smart player. And as you sort of hear there in Quinn's answer, this is an organization, and particularly Quinn, who believes in the G League. I know that not everybody's going to love to hear that explanation. That is a big part of why he's played so much in College Park, is that they think that him, number one, just playing a lot, but also they just think of the development and all that stuff of being in there. I think Kobe's defensive principles have almost certainly improved playing in the G League, playing a lot of minutes. They also wanted him to play a lot of point guard, which is good for just development in general of being, you know, an on-ball creator and an on-ball operator, pick and rolls, all that stuff. That's all kind of going into this, and we didn't get to see a lot of that bag tonight, but a nice first game in the rotation for Kobe, and I'm sure more to come on that, obviously, in the future. From there, Garrison Matthews was actually played less than Kobe did in this game. 9 minutes for Garrison. Hit his only shot, 1 of 1 from 3, had an assist, was fine. He actually played less than he was probably going to. He was at the scorer's table for like 3 minutes at one point, and nothing actually stopped, so he actually got pulled back. But I thought he was fine in his minutes, and they kind of had to have one more guy to get some minutes in this game. But the top 6 guys for the Hawks played 31 minutes or more on a back-to-back. Like, they were not fooling around in this game. Part of that, again, out of necessity with all the guys out. But Bogey played the least at 31 minutes off the bench. This is actually hilarious to say out loud, because it's a good reminder that plus minus is not going to tell you everything always. You got to have to use all of your other intuition and evaluation, because I thought Bogey was not good in this game. Like, very obviously not good. And he had the best plus minus on the team. They were plus 13 in Bogey's minutes. That was not because of Bogey. Offensively, he was 3-12 from the field, 1-6 from 3. Bogey has kind of quietly had a pretty, not like total disaster slump, but we're like a month, maybe 6 weeks almost, of him not being a great shooter. And I don't worry about that. Bogey's shooting bona fides are what they are. He was probably a little bit over his head before that stretch, but he shot the ball poorly at times in the last couple of weeks. But also, defensively, I thought Bogey was like their worst guy in this game. He made a lot of mistakes, which, I mean, you can live with Bogey kind of being, out-talented. He's a step slower than a lot of guys on the wing. Like, he's not going to be a great defender at this point in time. You can live with that, but you hope that he will execute. And he had a couple, helping off the strong side corner, just like some breakdowns. So, not his best work for sure. He was also kind of salty in this game. Like, I know I mentioned before that all sides were kind of salty in this game, but I thought Bogey was kind of like in a bad mood, it seemed like, on the court. Like, he didn't speak after the game, so I'm not sure. But anyway, like, not his best effort. And obviously, I'm very high on Bogey, but he was not very good in this game, I didn't think. To the starters, everyone was kind of have their own strengths in this game. Kongu had 32 minutes of play. He was in foul trouble. He missed 4 free throws, which is kind of bad for him. Like, he's actually a good free throw shooter, especially for a center. I think he's he's in the career range of mid to high 70s. He's 80% this year. So him going 3 of 7 at the line is a little bit strange. 7 rebounds, did have 3 blocks, 11 points. He was not his best in this game. Obviously a big role placed on him. He was kind of shackled by the foul trouble at times, but I thought he was okay, just not his best work. Trey actually played the next least minutes, 33 minutes. He was actually caught on camera on the bench, kind of doing some, rolling hip work on one of those like Theragun kind of things. I'm not sure what was going on there. But he actually was not very good in this game. Now, defensively, he competed at a high level for him, but he was 4 of 7 from 2 and 2 of 9 from 3. Did have 8 assists, but 18 points, like just not his best on offense in this game at all. Fortunately, they had Murray to pick him up, but Trey had been red hot coming in. Like, his numbers have been just crazy good since he came back from the concussion. But tonight, not his best work, and I'm sure he'll bounce back in the near future. Saddiq Bey, big night. 24 points for Saddiq, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, a steal, and a block. He was 4 of 6 on 2s and 4 of 9 on 3s. Quinn said post-game, kind of poked fun a little bit, how it wasn't long ago that people were kind of harping on Saddiq's shooting. Obviously, it's not been a great shooting season for Saddiq, but he's in the last 4 games, 13 of 27 from 3. That's 48%. So obviously some positive, movement there on 3-point shooting, which I've been saying was inevitable. Like, he's not as bad of a shooter as he was for a long time. So Quinn clearly loves Saddiq. He talks about him all the time in a positive way, but I thought he was very good in this game. Jalen Johnson, 21 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks, flying around. He kind of had some weird moments in the first half. Some weird breakdowns, but like his dunk, I think he had 4 dunks, maybe 5 dunks in this game. He was certainly finishing with regularity and with authority at the rim. The passing is very nice to unlock, and then defensively, hit and miss, but certainly better than he's been in the last couple games, and some good havoc creation. He's plus 10 in the game, and then Dejounte was awesome. 34 points, 7 assists, 6 rebounds, 2 steals. He was 5 of 10 on 2s and 4 of 9 from 3, to go along with, again, a career high in free throw attempts with 15. Dejounte had his 3rd highest scoring game of the season tonight with 34 points. Also, he's seemingly liked to face Houston in a Hawks uniform. Not a huge sample size, only 4 games, but in those 4 games against Houston, since he joined the Hawks, he's averaging about 28.5 points a game. So last year, the Hawks had a pretty memorable collapse against Houston when they were kind of up big and blew a lead to a bad team. But other than that, Dejounte has been really good against Houston, and he was really good in this game. He was assertive. He was getting to the rim. Sometimes Dejounte settles too much. There were a couple of jump shots that were probably a little bit ill-advised, but he can make those shots, obviously. And also, he was just good at getting all the way downhill to the rim. Not only just finishing, but also getting fouled. He's not always been a huge foul guy, but certainly he was good in this game. He was intense. He was focused, and he picked up Trey on offense in this one. So it's nice to have Dejounte back after missing 2 games, and full steam ahead because he looked good in this game. Hopefully he is fully healthy after the back issue the last few days. So we'll leave it there for now on this game. The Hawks have 2 more games until the All-Star break. Monday at home against Chicago, Chicago is not very good at this point, but they're certainly in the play-in mix. They are on their way down, it seems like right now, but they didn't do anything at the deadline, kind of like the Hawks did. So that's a little bit something to kind of circle on Monday. It's a home game. Advantage the Hawks probably there on paper. And then Wednesday, on Valentine's Day in Charlotte, is the final game before the actual break is concerned. So the Hawks should be, barring crazy injuries, and they have some right now to be sure, but barring something that I don't really see coming, they'll be favored in both games. Obviously, it's very reasonable to hope / think that they're going to get to 8-2 in their last 10 before the break. And if they get into the break at 26-29, that's not great, but certainly with where they were a few weeks ago, that would seem like a pretty positive end to the first quote-unquote half of the season, which is actually much more than a half of the season. But anyway, we'll have full coverage of those games as we always do, and then we'll sort of have some a little bit of a lull during the break. I'm going to do some travel. I'll have hopefully a show or two to plug in while I am gone. But yeah, stay tuned for all of that. We should be here wall to wall as we always are for game coverage. Please subscribe to this podcast anywhere you get your podcasts, especially places like Apple and Spotify and Overcast, as well as YouTube on the video side. Ratings, reviews, likes, subscriptions, follows, shares, all that stuff, always appreciated as well. Follow us on social media, mostly on Twitter, at Locked On Hawks, or follow me there as well at BT Rowland if you are interested in some written content as well as some behind-the-scenes audio sometimes. Also, patreon.com/BT Rowland. And also, if you're an audio-only subscriber to this podcast, you will get some bonus content on a regular basis from the folks at Locked On Sports Atlanta. Sort of just a companion to our show, nothing less from me, but just some extra bonus content to listen to along the way this season, including, I believe, tonight as well. So please subscribe to the podcast. I really do appreciate that. Find a Hawks fan, friend, or family member in your life and share the podcast with them. I would definitely appreciate that as the community hopefully continues to grow in the future. But a nice run for the Hawks. We'll talk about all of the big picture stuff as well. I'll have some guest plans, some more mailbags coming up pretty soon as we sort of transition into the basketball only portion of the season, because there's not really trade stuff to follow right now. There isn't a ton of rumor stuff. It's just going to be like, full speed ahead, I should say, to basketball and analyzing basketball and the future sometimes, I'm sure, and the draft's going up and all that stuff, but a good time to just kind of jump on board now in advance of the rest of the season. All right, that's it for me on this fine Saturday evening into Sunday. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll see you after the game on Monday.